Okay.
Okay, it's being recorded, and I can hear some noise. I don't know which one's noise. If you are going to talk, go ahead and unmute. Otherwise, probably you want to mute. Okay. I didn't get any other questions via email to address. So if you have any questions about week 3 or week 4, it's probably a good idea to ask now.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So far, the quizzes have been mostly statistics. Should we expect the same for the midterm, or is it lecture? I mean, books more?
It will be pretty similar to the weekly quizzes. So you'll certainly will have like t-test, chi-square, and this week you are doing the questionnaire development, right? So there will be some questionnaire development items, and there will be some Q&A. I mean, true and false and multiple choice questions. So it will be similar in many ways. And there will be, I think, 28 questions or something like that.
Okay, because it's a lot of material that we covered, and between the statistics and the readings. So would you say it's half-half or mostly?
No, it's mostly statistics. The readings it will not be reflected like testing you on your memory and things like that. The readings usually will be really helpful for your final project when you carry out the project in different levels, and then it's more procedural stuff that you are applying the readings in your project. But the midterm is really about the techniques and skills that you learn to analyze data.
Okay.
Yeah, so there will not be much reading related questions. If there are a couple, probably 1 or 2 or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other question?
Just a quick one. In terms of the questionnaire development, will we be able to get our results from our quiz before the midterm? Because some of us were discussing them yesterday, and they were kind of, it could be this, it could be that, or are there multiple answers to some of the questions?
Okay, that's a good question. I will try to grade it as soon as possible. This week has been crazy. This is the finals week on campus, and we have capstones, and we have commencement, and we have the hooding ceremony. Everything is arranged this week, so it would be really challenging. But I will go ahead and grade starting tomorrow. It's due tonight, right? So tomorrow I'll start grading it. And hopefully by the end of Thursday, you will all get the result. And you are right, there are different options when you, especially if I ask you to reword. Now, as long as the reworded question itself makes sense, you'll get the full point.
Now, is for the window, is it still 1 to 5 p.m. on Sunday?
1 to 6.
1 to 6, and it's now 3 hours, correct?
3 hours. Yeah, I extended to 3 hours. Yeah, it used to be 90 minutes, 1.5, but I thought I could give everyone a bit longer time.
I'm just curious, is there a reason why it's like from 1 to 5?
1 to 6.
Or 1 to 6?
The reason is because for this kind of test, we do, because there is no alternative test items. And usually we do not want test items to be revealed for, between peers. And of course, we in general, we trust our students. But this is one way to make sure that everyone can do within certain limit, and we do this a lot. And in some of our we also have computer science degree completion. We have to use proctors. So everyone taking a test needs to be proctored because the professors want to make sure they are the people who are actually writing the code and not someone else is helping or not plagiarism is going on. But those are for undergraduate students. And for graduate students, we don't usually do that. So we just trust, you are the person who is doing the test. But we do not want to make it like several days for the actual test, and then the items can be discussed and reviewed. It's not like we have a whole bank of test questions we could draw from.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are these kind of practical limit we are facing. And there were one question, I think, Claudia, you had about the final project, right? So asking about the final project, what's the duration of the project? And originally I said 45 minutes intervention, but you do not have to follow that, especially if you are using your prototyping. Your prototype is only 10 or 15 minutes. So you could go ahead and use that. But the process itself is really important. So this class is really teaching you how to conduct usability tests and how to set up or create the pre-test items, post-test items, how to create the survey questions. So as long as all of those details are followed carefully and you learn the procedures, and I have no doubt you can apply this to a bigger project later. So what I'm going to do today, I will go ahead and share my screen because I'm going to open up all the future weeks. So you will you can take a look at what's ahead, and I need to turn on the edit on. Turn editing on, and then so there are 4 more weeks left. So I think I cleaned all the things up. So this should be okay to be shared. So this is week 5, and week 6. I need week 6 materials, and you could take a look at all the available things. And week 7 and week 8. There are maybe some other things I need to clean up a little bit, but I missed a few of these. So if you come under term project samples under week 6, you will see a few examples. Okay, this should give you a real good idea. And I really highly recommend this one. And she did a real good job back in 2011. That's why I'm still using hers as a sample. And if you open up this project, and she's the one who did a similar usability test plus learning effectiveness test. Okay. So combining these two, what she did is, this is a report she put together. And what's valuable is toward the end, I think you will benefit from this. You could look at some of the, to do the usability test, usually you need to come up with an observation checklist, okay, and ask some questions. And then also has some questionnaires to ask students, like for example, was the instruction clear enough to follow, right? Please read to 1 to 5. How significantly do you think the instruction contribute to memory building skills? So some of those are post questions that you could ask, and those are not the post test. This is really the usability questions. Did you experience any frustration while learning the modules? Those are not necessarily the right questions or the same questions you are going to use, but this gives you an idea. Like besides the post and pre test items, so in terms of survey questions, you could ask more about the usability of the self-paced product itself. Okay. And the observation checklist is usually when person is using your stuff, your module, you will observe and take a note. For example, does the learner complete each and every item in the module? Okay, yes or no, and comments, right? Does the learner allow the instruction, follow the instruction correctly? And you observe and put. So some of those items, or sometimes you have a task list for them. For example, if you want to test a website and you want to know whether the users are quickly finding what they are given to find. For example, find the telephone information of Costco in Seaside, okay? And you give them the Costco website. And within going to the Costco website, whether they can locate the phone number right away. So those are the usability tasks you can provide. And then based on where they are clicking to trying to find that information can give you some idea about whether your information architecture for that website makes sense or not. Okay, it's usually under contact us or contact information or about us. It's possible that your person may end up putting it under the employees or something like that, right? So giving some tasks to navigate around within your modules is one way to do usability test. Okay, and another way is to sorry for that. Another way is to list this kind of questions, right? And then you just observe and take the comments, okay? Especially if this is self-paced, it's already sequenced and things like that. They don't have much freedom of navigating and bouncing from one section to the other. You could have those kind of. So the reason I provided these examples is because you could take a look at how those samples are, and you could have a better understanding of the scope of the project. And for this one, they also did a very good job, but they only did effectiveness test because the usability test was a separate document they provided earlier, okay? And they did not do a very good job on that, so I didn't include that one, okay? So these are the some examples in week 6, okay? So if you have some time, you can go through everything until week 8. So I counted, it looks like the last day your term project due is actually Tuesday is June 16, okay? So your summer break will start on June 15th to July 5th. So you will have about 20 days of vacation between. So originally I thought it's June 17th, but actually earlier. So hopefully this helps and it can be helpful for you to pace yourself and get things done in your own pace. Okay. Any other questions or anything you would like to ask me at this point?
If I can go back to the midterm,
okay.
I just wanted to just reiterate and make sure that so your what would you recommend that we focus on? Is it just, you said the t-test, the chi-square, just basically all the content in the quizzes?
Yeah, the weekly quizzes are the good examples of what kind of questions you would get. So for example, the weekly quiz for weekly quiz for quiz 3, right? So it will have, let's see. So it will have some of the, multiple choice questions and things like that. It will be similar. These questions may be altered to come up. And then we'll have, like this is the t-test we had, right? So it will have a similar t-test questions. And then quiz 2, you had the chi-square test and things like that. So I believe it will be tested, inference statistics using both t-test and chi-square. And then the questionnaire development will be there. And some of the questions may be about like standard deviation or, calculating some of the, I don't remember exactly. But there will be some calculation involved also. Okay. But a lot of those are multiple choice questions as well.
Are you going to give us, or do you have any labs where we could practice doing some of the t-tests or chi-tests more so that we know we're doing it correctly?
I did not plan to do that. I thought those quizzes that you went through should give you fairly good ideas what you are going to do, the labs and the quizzes.
Okay.
It's not that much different than those. For example, chi-square is really comparing like expected value to the observed. And sometimes probably the expected values is not that clear. You have to really think what the expected values should be. Okay. And there will be some hint when that kind of questions comes up. I don't want to reveal the question, Lori.
No, I don't want you to reveal the question. I just don't know that I certainly don't feel like I've mastered how to do these two things. I mean, I've been able to walk through and do them, but it's certainly not something my level of confidence is all that great. So are there any other places where we could?
I could give you some more examples later when you finish week 4 quizzes. I think it's due tonight, right? So I can give you some more t-test examples and chi-square examples that you can practice a few of those. But I do not think, for example, the survey or the questionnaire development, I don't think you need more items to practice there, right? Because those are pretty straightforward.
Right.
And it will take me some time to really come up with those items, and I'm not sure I can really, given how busy this week, can put that together. And to make things easier for the questionnaire development questions, I'm not going to let you rephrase. I let you rephrase and try out on your own in quiz 4, but you just need to tell me what violation certain questions made. Is it double-barreled item, or is it like leading or loaded question, right? So as long as you are able to identify those, it's pretty quick. You can do the multiple choice there. Okay. So that's the to-do item for me. I will come up with some more analysis type of questions for you.
So is the majority of the test then multiple choice?
Multiple choice, true and false. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and then actually doing a couple of the
yeah, it's just at the end a couple of those questions, probably like 2 or 3 questions. So it's more data analysis type.
So will we need to be submitting, like we did to the Dropbox, submitting something to the, okay.
Yeah. So I did put a Dropbox here, and the midterm exam Dropbox.
Okay.
So more practice items.
About how many questions will the midterm be? I don't know if you know.
I think all together is probably 28 questions.
Okay. And mixed in, the multiple choice and free response.
And your name is showing up as Marty. Who are you?
Erica.
That's what I thought. Okay. Okay. So did I answer your question, Erica?
Yeah, I just want to allocate my time proportionately.
Okay. And you should be able to skim through all the questions when you're doing. You can skim through first, which is probably a good idea too, and then you allocate, do the ones you make sure first, and then give enough time. The fact I'm giving you 3 hours, you have enough.
Yeah.
And if you're really familiar with those questions, I have seen my students actually done in 40 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other questions you're particularly worried about? If not, I think I can be available online. You can always ask me questions. And you may want to go through all the lectures one more time before you take the midterm, and then go through all the quizzes if you still can. And get a good internet connection and quiet room for 3 hours. If you are really done in 2 hours and there is nothing you can do, you can go ahead and submit. You do not need to really suffer through additional hour. Okay. And as I said, in average, students are done in probably in 60 to 80 minutes. And a lot of them do not need 90 minutes. And the fact I'm giving you 180 minutes should be really more than enough. But there is certain limit. You do not need to suffer through the whole thing. You just go ahead and submit whenever you think that's it.
Dr. Sue, can I go back to the project?
Okay.
Is the format that we submitted with a pre-test, if that's what we decide, the format should be a pre-test of their prior knowledge and then a video, instructional video. It does not have to be our previous project from our previous class, correct?
No, it does not have to be.
Okay.
So how it works is sometimes your prototype is not ready.
Right.
And it does not make sense to spend time to test
Right.
it, and then you do not need to your prototype. You could join another student whose prototype is already ready to be tested, or you could identify other self-paced instruction, and then you can use it. But pre-test and post-test items, usually they are identical. So you want to use the same test, but you also so the test is really testing about what you're going to teach. Okay, so the questions, the pre-test and post-test questions, should not be any subjective question. For example, have you heard of something that you are going to teach? And should not ask that kind of questions. You need to ask really the content or skill-based question. If you are teaching math, your pre and post test should be math equations or math questions. Okay. So oftentimes people sometimes not clear what to test them on the pre and post test. You just need to look through what you are teaching and then come up with the question that the people can answer after going through the tutorial. Okay. And so the pre-test and post-test can be same test, or alternative forms, and you will know what alternative forms is. For example, if you are going to test whether your students can do addition from within 10, or and then you can probably ask first a few questions will be 2 plus 2, 2 plus 3, and something like that. And last post-test will be similar. Okay, it should not be exactly same, because they probably already learned from their mistakes in the pre-test. But sometimes a lot of the things that you're teaching is knowledge-based. So for knowledge-based things, you want to use the same test. That's totally fine. It's actually better. You will have much higher reliability if you use the same test. And besides the pre and post test, as I mentioned, for usability test, you would like to come up with a task list for your users to go through and observe them, or you can come up with a checklist for yourself to observe them. Okay? And you need to submit the checklist or observe or the task list. And at the end, after they go through, you could either ask them questions. It's more like interview questions afterwards, or focus group interview, or a survey question. You could have like a few survey questions. Whether the navigation is intuitive enough, whether the animation is distractive or not, or whether the audio is comfortable. It's really how comfortable to use your stuff. Okay, and some people also asks about whether the color is appropriate. So you need to just brainstorm what is related to that module you want to know in terms of its usability, whether the pace is reasonable for the users. Okay. So hopefully the few examples I provided under week 6 can give you some ideas of what you can ask.
And for our sample size, did you say up to 10, like 8 to 10, or was it 5?
It's 10 is better. If you have 10 people, your statistical power will go up a lot, but it's not required. If you have 5, it works too. Okay. For usability, usually you only need 3 to 5 students. But because you are combining usability test along with the level 2 test, and for level 2 test, you're doing statistical analysis. And for statistics, the more the sample size, the bigger the sample size, the better to come to a conclusion. Okay.
Now, obviously, our target audience, that can be. I was thinking, I have some friends that I could possibly, but they might not be my target audience. Does it have to be a general, or how?
This is one practical thing that you have to solve. For example, if your target audience for your prototype was 5th graders, and during the summer it's very difficult to get hold of 5th graders, then you can see that whether you can get hold of 5th graders in somewhere through friends or through relatives. If it will not work, you could get probably people who have similar, entry level. For example, if you're teaching earthquake training, okay, and earthquake training is usually taught in 3rd or 4th grade, okay, and you could get those, or you could get some 5th grade. But for earthquake training, it would be not that appropriate to get an adult for you to do, because they already know, so they will really score high on the pre-test, and then same as on the post-test. So you will not be able to judge the effectiveness of your tutorial, right? So you have to make the judgment call whom you are going to include. Right? And if you think some people, probably someone from another country who never was trained on earthquake, and if they said they never trained and they really do not know when earthquake happens, even if they are adult, you can still include them, okay? Because your goal is to see that whether your module is effective or not. Okay. Any other question? And some of you are asking whether you should go ahead and do more on your prototype and then make it as an intervention to test it. I do not recommend that, because you're already busy with this class. And if you want to, unless you already have time to really polish up your prototype, otherwise, I didn't have any group in the past who really was creating the prototype and testing it in this class. It should be already done deal in terms of the prototype. Otherwise, you should go ahead and find other type of intervention. Okay. I know this can be quite stressful because this is a term project and we only have a few weeks to do this. And yeah, I will keep all these factors in mind when I grade, but this process itself, you have to go through to really understand and be able to duplicate this on your own for your capstone or later. Is there any of yours local here? I know probably
am.
a few. Huh?
I am.
Yeah, I know Novara is local, but you work in DLI full time, right? Is there anyone who is local?
No, I don't work actually at DLI.
Oh, I thought you did work as DLI. I'm sorry. Where do you work at?
I work for a private company online. So I'm
I
in
see.
e-learning. It is for
Okay.
the military, but not at DLI.
Okay, so you're a contractor.
Yes.
Right. I see. Okay. So, and none of other students here is Nawara. Do you know anyone in your cohort is local in Monterey?
I know Ruwaida lives in Monterey, but she does work at DLI full time.
I see. Okay.
My understanding is that Dana is from around, I think either Moss Landing or somewhere. I'm not 100% sure,
Okay.
but I've seen her done projects in the area.
Okay.
So I'm assuming she's local.
Okay. I see. Okay. Yeah. I'm looking for some. I'm the chair of the School of Computing and Design, and we do have some undergraduate courses that a person with an English background. It's really teaching junior students about GWAR class. GWAR is an English writing class. And Karen Wisdom is teaching 3 sections, and we do need another person to teach another 3 sections. But if you're not local, it's a face-to-face class, so it will not be possible.
So this is a part-time position?
It's a part-time, yeah. Part-time
Okay.
position.
I will see if I know of anyone around and I'll contact you about it.
Okay, if you, we do have, I asked our person to post it. It should be csumb.edu/scd. And if you go there on our school website, there is about SCD and there's open faculty positions. Yeah. Oh, okay. I think he already adjusted this. So the open sessions is these 3 times that we need people to teach.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can, this is the URL. If you can share this with others, I'll see whether I can post this somewhere. There used to be a chat function, right?
Yes, it's on the bottom.
Okay.
No, for us.
Okay. So this is the where, if you know anyone, usually we require a master's degree and then who has a liberal art or English writing or communication background, bachelor's degree or master's degree. This is something else, sorry. This is really your time to ask questions.
I have one.
Okay.
I was wondering about the quiz from this week and also from last week. The reason why I think many of us didn't try a 3rd time because you gave us 3 tries. And this week it may happen again if the quiz does not tell us if we missed, for example, and what areas we need to try. I don't know if the others have the same issue, but that's what I was finding.
So Nancy, I know I didn't get the last part of the things you said.
I was asking that the quiz does not tell us if we missed. So if we don't know if we missed, why would we do it again?
Yeah, this was already brought up by Claudia at the beginning. So I'm going to grade once it's due on Wednesday and Thursday. So by the end of Thursday, you should get my feedback.
So the quiz is not due tonight at midnight?
Yes, it's open until midnight, right? It's Tuesday.
So Yes, but if you grade them until Thursday, we wouldn't have another opportunity to try again?
Yeah, because it's a quiz, you cannot, yeah. So you cannot know my answer and then you get the answer again. So this, you will not see the feedback because that's portion of the feedback that I will give you when it's done, right? And as I mentioned, you probably were not here. So as long as the items that you corrected is solid, you should get the grade. I mean, get the point, because there are different ways to fix a question, right? And as long as the way that you reword it makes sense and simple enough, you should be fine. And in the midterm, I'm not going to let you rephrase as long as you are able to tell whether this question is double-barreled, whether this question negatively worded and things like that. You will be fine. Okay. So there are those 10 common mistakes, right? I posted. So, you know, as long as you're able to identify what's the problems, that's good enough for midterm.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Debbie, you go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, let me unmute you. I probably unmuted.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Let's see here. Claudia and I was asking last night in our group about the, I guess, I'm not sure if that was relevant, about one of the questions, question 3 in the quiz. And it mentions an alpha factor. I don't really understand what I'm supposed to, what criteria I should be using in selecting my answer for question number 3. Are you allowed to talk about that at all with us? Or
you mean the alpha? There are 2 different alphas, right? When we talk about the significant level, that's alpha level, is usually 5% for conventional studies. Or are you talking about the reliability?
I'm
Yes.
trying to pull up. I can't pull up right now. My
Yes,
computer.
it's the reliability, the Cronbach.
Thank you.
The Cronbach's alpha. Cronbach's alpha is the internal reliability, right? Internal consistency reliability. I think we covered in week 4.
But I don't really understand it. I read the notes, but could you, internal reliability and the alpha, can you discuss that at all?
Yeah, okay. Let's get to that slide. So you probably can, I remembered somewhere I had it, right? Is this is it, or probably start from a bit earlier? Let's see. Yeah, this is types of reliability. So how people do different types of reliability. One is test and retest reliability. And this is what you can do. What you're doing is really correlating the first test scores and the second test scores. It's really doing a correlation coefficient test. And that's little r is the reliability coefficient. And alternate
a correlation coefficient is what we're using for the for testing the reliability.
Yeah, reliability is always correlation coefficient, right? So it's the small r. So somewhere I explained that. Is it later? It's been no. So
I think it's before.
Yeah, reliability is always a correlation coefficient. You are seeing how reliable this thing is, right? So you are comparing, oops, 2 sets of scores and running correlation between those 2 sets. So the alternative form is you already have one test and then you have equivalent form, and you give those two tests, and then you're really correlating between the two test scores. And another one is split half reliability, is you are splitting your test items. If you have 100 test items, you will randomly split them, and then you run the correlation. For example, you had 50 people took the test. So the student A's, half of the test is correlated to student A's is the other half. Okay, so that's the split half reliability. So coefficient alpha is the content sampling and item heterogeneity. So it's what it's doing is within the test score that you probably only have one test score, and then what it's doing is like comparing it against the other test takers. For example, student A get all multiple choice questions, and student B missed a few multiple choice questions. Whether this pattern is consistent in different sections of the questions. Okay, so you are using one set of score, one set of people who took the test, and comparing against those each other to see how consistent are they. Okay, if student A missed several questions in this category, whether he also missed the other category in these questions. Okay, so comparing that's the coefficient alpha. Okay, and inter-reader reliability is really for qualitative things. For example, you're coding a paragraph, and you have coder A interpreted this way, coder B interpreted this way, and you want to see that how close they are. That's the inter-reader reliability. And for example, if you give a paragraph and saying, okay, coder A is going to find synchronyme of this thing and see that how frequently this meaning is occurring. And it's possible coder A came up with 15 cases in this whole article, and the other person come with 14, and you have all those and see that how well they are correlated. So this is one of the check that all the coders need to do. So for dissertation, if you're doing qualitative dissertation, you always need to get the co-coder who can verify how well you coded. If the discrepancy or the differences between two coders are a lot or huge, you always need to get a third person to look at. So this is a way to say, okay, how reliable when you interpret something, your interpretation is coming across the right way.
And in what depth should we be walking away from this course of understanding the right reliability? In other words, will we be applying this in math and making calculations and in making decisions using these different types of reliability, or is it just kind of the concept you want us to get?
First of all, concept for sure. You want to get the concept, and then you are not going to be applying these things, I do not think. But in some point, you may be asked to apply and say, okay, give me the reliability of your test. Okay, if that's the case, you can run the reliability, and a lot of research software, for example, SPSS, you could run the alpha. Okay, just choose the score and then click on running the reliability. It will give you. And it's important to know this though, when you are looking at or to try to adopt a test for your own students or for your own implementation, validated tests always come with a reliability report. Okay, and the general consensus is you want to see whether the test has 80%, 0.8 or above or greater on the reliability. Okay, if the reliability falls under that, okay, you probably want to be cautious about whether you want to use this test or not. So those a few pages, at least you should know that what kind of reliability you will be looking at. If you're doing a research, you always need to report the reliability of your measures. And that's usually required because you want to say that, you know, the measure I'm using is valid. And this is also another important point. What reliability and validity. So relationship between those two. Let's see, where did I talk about that? Okay, so reliability is necessary for validity, right? If you want to say this thing has a high value, you have to have reliable measurement, okay? But it's not sufficient, right? And sometimes you have a highly reliable thing, but it's probably not valid. For example, I gave the example of scale, right? And your scale is probably always measuring 5 pounds more than how much you weigh, okay? And your son popped up on the scale, it still gives 5 more pounds than how he weighs. So it's consistently giving you the error, right? So you will have high reliability, but it's not that valid. It's not really reflecting the true weight, right? So this is reliability is a necessary condition for validity, but it's not sufficient. Okay? Yeah. In order for something to have a high validity, you have to have a high reliability.
Now, if you could go up, the validity coefficient, sorry. I want to make sure if there are any points I'm missing about validity. So for reliability, we use the correlation coefficient, and for validity, we have different types.
Validity, it's a huge concept, and there's no way for us to cover this. And different types of validity, you will have different types of statistics. Okay, for example, for construct validity. Construct validity is probably the most difficult to understand. What construct validity is doing is, so here, like, does the test accurately reflect the dimensions underlying the construct measured by the test? For example, if you are measuring certain attitude, okay, and this attitude may have sub-construct under it. Okay? It's a bit abstract. I cannot think of any example at this point on top of my head. So in order to really see it has the contract validity, what you need is factor analysis. Okay, factor analysis, you will see that, for example, if you come up with 20 questions to measure the construct validity, and you'll do a exploratory factor analysis to see how many dimensions it's loading, okay? And it's possible that if you have multiple questions asking one construct or one concept, and then factor analysis will tell you based on the things that you collected from 200 people replied to your survey of the 20 items. And when you do the exploratory factor analysis, you will see how many dimensions or they are loaded. That's how you look at whether you have a high construct validity or not. So you do not need to know a lot of the details about how to prove these things. As long as you on the face, you know that there are a few big types of validities, okay? For example, the content validity. How do we know that this thing has a content validity? And oftentimes to do content validity, you will involve experts, okay? So if you are going to create a test, and that test is going to measure students' understanding of certain, for example, solar system, okay? And then you, of course, need to test it against whatever solar system that module covered. But at the same time, you want to get an expert to check for you. Okay? So content validity is often involves expert, and the face validity is also involves expert. Okay, so on the surface, whether the questions you are asking is really what you're supposed to ask. Okay? So those are the things, and the criteria related to validity. There are two big ones. One is predictive validity, and the other is concurrent validity. Okay, and predictive validity is something you want to use this set of things to predict for the future future measurement. Okay.
What are those two types? Because is it written on this slide? You
yes,
said
it's somewhere here. I think I should include that. Yeah. So it's like predictive validity and concurrent validity, right? And it's predictive validity is about, and this is concurrent validity is about.
okay.
So, for example, we often want to see that whether our GPA of our students is a good prediction for how well they are going to get tested on their SAT score. Okay, so and you could measure those two things or correlate those two things to come up with a predictive validity, okay, of certain test score or something like that. And those is more like a correlation coefficient we are talking about. Okay, so what kind of methods to use to measure the validity? It depends on what kind of validity we are talking about. And this class we're not going to cover so much, and like factor analysis itself is so much things that you have to learn, and it's really not the class for that. Okay, but those are really good questions. I'm glad you asked those.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So for those who missed the earlier of you earlier Q&A session, that what I'm going to do is hopefully tomorrow I have some more time to come up with a few more practice items for chi-square test and t-test. Okay, I'll provide a few more items there, so you'll have probably one more Excel sheet with data points to answer a few questions and practice.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? And I will go ahead and grade your quiz for tomorrow as soon as I can. This week has been really crazy for us. Okay. No other questions? I see you're smiling and some of you are still worried. I don't think you need to worry, especially because I extended the 90 minutes to 180 minutes for your midterm. You have plenty of time to go through.
Okay.
Okay, so that's almost 1 hour. And if you do not have any questions, you can always ask me questions online or email.
Thank you, Dr. Sue.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck if I don't see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.